Asadanandana Badranarandana Jamunatera Vanachari Yamunatera Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Swami Govinda ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gopal Nandi. Oh glories to some devotees, oh glories to some devotees, oh glories to some devotees, oh glories to Shigu and Shiguranga. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, Description of the Kingdom of God, text number 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yat Sankulam Hari Paranati Matrajiste Vaidura Marakata Hema Maya Vimanai Ye Shambhihakati Tadasmita Shobha Mukhya Krishna Manamna Raja Hadapur Utsmadayai Yat Sankulam Hari Parati Matrajische Vaidura Marakata Hema Maya Vimanai Ye Shambhihakati Tatasmiti Shobha Mukhya Krishna Manamna Raja Adhadhu Utsmarayai It's Brahmasamhita tune. Yat Sankulam Hari Padanati Matriste Paidu Amara Katahema Maya Vimanai Ye Shambhiha Kaditatasmiti Shobha Mukhya Krishna Manamna Raja Adadu Utsmadayai. Anyone else? Yat Sankulam Hari Padanati Machadishte Paidu Amara Katahema Maya Vimanai Ye Shambhiha Kaditatasmiti Shobha Mukhya Krishna Manamna Raja Adadu Utsmadayai. Word for word. Yat, that Vaikuntha abode. Sankulam is pervaded. Haripada at the two lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anati, by obeisances. Matra, simply. Drishtai are obtained. Vaidura, lapas lazuli. Marakata, emeralds. Hema, gold. Mai, made of. Vimanai, with airplanes. Yesham, of those passengers. Brihat, large. Katitataha, hips. Smita, smiling. Shobi, beautiful. Mukyaha, faces. Krishna, in Krishna. Atmanam, whose minds are absorbed. Na, not. Rajaha, sex desire. Adaduhu, stimulate. Utsmaya, ajaya, by intimate friendly dealings, laughing and joking. Translation per Buddha's own A.C. Bhagavatam Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha travel in the airplanes made of lapas lazuli, emerald and gold. Although crowded by their consorts who have large hips and beautiful smiling faces, they cannot be stimulated to passion by their mirth and beautiful charms. Please repeat. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha travel in their airplanes made of lapis lazuli, emerald and gold. Although crowded by their consorts who have large hips and beautiful smiling faces, they cannot be stimulated to passion by their mirth and beautiful charms. Purport. In the material world, opulences are achieved by materialistic persons by dint of their labour. One cannot enjoy material prosperity unless he works very hard to achieve it. But the devotees of the Lord who are residents of Vaikuntha have the opportunity to enjoy a transcendental situation of jewels and emeralds. Ornaments made of gold bedecked with jewels are achieved not by working hard, but by the benediction of the Lord. In other words, devotees in the Vaikuntha world, or even in this material world, cannot be poverty-stricken as is sometimes supposed. They have ample opulences for enjoyment, but they need not labour to achieve them. It is also stated that in the Vaikuntha world, the consorts or the residents are many, many times more beautiful than we can find in this material world, even in the higher planets. It is specifically mentioned here that a woman's large hips are very attractive and they stimulate man's passion, but the wonderful feature of Vaikuntha is that although the women have large hips and beautiful faces and are decorated with ornaments of emeralds and jewels, the men are so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that the beautiful bodies of the women cannot attract them. In other words, there is enjoyment of the association of the opposite sex, but there is no sexual relationship. The residents of Vaikuntha have a better standard of pleasure, so there is no need of sex pleasure. So we continue with Maitreya speaking to Vidura, and Maitreya is speaking, where he was addressed by the demigods, asking where the darkness in this universe is coming from. So Lord Brahma was beginning to explain the cause of that darkness, and he begins with the story of how the four Kumaras approached Vaikuntha or travelled to Vaikuntha. So as we know, the result of that visit was that the giant Vijay were cursed to take birth, and because they're in the embryo stage in the womb of deity. Therefore, that darkness is there. But initially, Lord Brahma is just describing the Vaikuntha, the glories of Vaikuntha. And we see by this description that is full of personal variegatedness. Sometimes there's a conception that spiritual is, just oneness, or there's no personality or void. And Prabhupada specifically came to this, to the West. He gave us in his Pranam mantra, second Pranam mantra, that he was the servant of Saraswati. And he was describing, giving the instructions of like Gauravani, Pacharine, giving the instructions of Lord Caitanya, and for the purpose of destroying impersonalism and voidism, Nivashesha Samyavadi, Pastachar Deshataranya, specifically in the Western world. So this conception that, spirituality means impersonal, no variegatedness, everything is one, is defeated in this Lord Brahma's description. And we know that, as said, that the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So if we have variegatedness here, personal variegatedness, therefore we're going to have it in the spiritual world. But even more so, because we may have dead matter in this material world, but everything in the spiritual world is personal. The air and the ground and, the buildings, the trees, everything is completely personal. And the personality who is residing in those different objects or elements, that's their particular rasa with Krishna. Somehow or other, it may be difficult to understand, but that's their particular rasa of Krishna. And Krishna is reciprocating according to the desire of these different jivas. So we hear that in Vaikuntha, the residents of Vaikuntha, they're travelling in their airships or vimanas. So also, the different epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana, which a lot of it, the stories are taking place in this world, we also hear about these flying airships or vimanas. I mean, if you ask the average person in this world that many thousands of years ago they were flying in airplanes, they would just give you a blank look. So no, it's, people were just living in caves, just cavemen, very primitive life. There's no question of having airships. But the modern scientific understanding, at least on time, is time began at a certain point, and then it's like linear. It just keeps going ad infinitum. And through the influence of that time, life forms begin very simple, and it gradually evolves into complex life forms. Or in human society, it begins very primitive and then becomes very advanced. So you say, in the beginning, humans evolved from apes and living in caves, etc. But now we have very high-tech, computerized society. So this is the general presentation of the understanding of the evolution of the world. But the Vedic concept is cyclic. Everything is repeating itself. And if you were to present that, couldn't possibly advanced cultures exist at the same time as primitive cultures? So you present that argument and say, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence of that? They're digging, the different scientists are digging up the ground and finding fossils, and they say, so many thousands of years ago, people were living very primitive life, but now we're advanced. So what's our evidence to say that couldn't advanced life be coexisting with primitive life? So I would argue that we can see that right now, that we've got, Western society, or most countries, it's very advanced, but at the same time there are groups of people who are living very primitive, such as, in the Amazon and Indonesia, Andaman Islands, etc. They're living very primitive, from our modern perspective, very primitive lifestyles, and they're coexisting with very advanced lifestyles. So if it can happen now, why can't it happen previously? It's interesting that in 1984, in the Western Australian desert, a group of 9 Aboriginals, they were sort of, extended family. They walked out of the desert into a little town called Pintupi, which is sort of central Western Australian desert. They had never had contact with European society. This is only 1984. So they were like the last remaining, Aboriginals living their traditional lifestyle. They had no idea for the last 200 years the country has been colonised by, European people. So the point is that, from just basic observation, primitive life formed, cultures can coexist with advanced cultures. So anyway, the point is that we're hearing about, airships, etc. So this is technology that has been lost in Kali Yuga, but on the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear that it was going on. And, even things like, I look, like the Wright brothers, they're sort of considered the first people to fly in modern society. So in 1903, they first flew, Indiana and USA. They were first flying their very primitive air flight. So according to Western culture, they were the first people who flew. And in their trial flights, they were flying overhead of the other farmers so often that the farmers wouldn't even look up, out of curiosity. They were just so used to it. But at the same time, in Europe, people were saying, no, man will never fly, not possible. So, it really depends on, your source of knowledge and your experience, what sort of conclusions you come to. And general understanding is the wheel was invented about 5,500 years ago, but the Mahabharata, Ramayana took place a few million years ago, and they were using chariots which had wheels. So it's, in the end, we need to decide which authority we're going to accept. But anyway, the whole point I'm trying to bring up is that we may hear things in the Vedas that goes against the modern scientific understanding, but, there are evidence and different arguments to be able to support that there's no reason why it can't be accepted. So we're also hearing a comparison of the material and spiritual enjoyment. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that it's only through very hard labour that in this material world people can develop the opulences and the facilities that everybody seems to be after. But in the spiritual realm, Prabhupada specifically says Vaikuntha, but also in this world that by the grace of Krishna, he can provide anything. And the devotees, we're engaged in spreading the Sankirtan movement, but we don't necessarily have to strive so hard just for our general maintenance. And, you use the example, like we have different sannyasis, travelling preachers. They're moving around the world spreading transcendental knowledge, but they're not working hard to, where's my next dollar coming from? Somehow or other, by Krishna's arrangement, he's supplying the necessities and he's moving these devotees around the world just to spread transcendental knowledge. Another example, like Harinam Ruchi Kirtan group. It's a large group of devotees, no job or fixed income, but somehow or other they're moving around the world by Krishna's arrangement to spread the glories of the holy name. But in comparison, there's one story, it's probably about 30 years ago or so it happened, but there was one Japanese family, and they, at that time, apparently, it was very popular for Japanese to holiday in Hawaii. And this family, his husband, wife, son and daughter, they had all the tourist brochures, Hawaii, all the tropical beaches, and their goal was to have a holiday of a lifetime, go to Hawaii. But they weren't, they were quite poor, and it was going to cost a lot of money. So they thought, we'll scrimp and save until we've got enough to do our holiday. It was only going to be a 2-week holiday in Hawaii, but that was their holiday of the lifetime. So the husband and wife were working, even the son and daughter, they had part-time jobs, and scrimping and saving for 10 years until they had enough for their holiday. And so very excited, they get on the plane, and they had like a 5-star. They thought, we really, holiday of a lifetime, we're going to do it in style. So after 10 years of scrimping and saving, they went to Hawaii and got to the hotel. And anyway, the next morning they woke up all very eager to go to the tropical beaches, but it was torrential rain coming. So they couldn't go out. Okay, we'll just explore the hotel and get comfortable, and the rain will stop. But day after day after day, torrential rain every day, and they were becoming more and more depressed. Did we work 10 years just for this? And after 10 days of constant rain, they wrote a note, and then a whole 4 of them suicided. So not a happy story. But, so we have devotees who, without, great endeavour, Krishna is making the arrangement to move around, constantly travelling. But others who are just have, a materialistic goal, they work so hard, but in the end, there's no real, benefit or enjoyment. So it's also in the purport, or in the verse, it mentioned that these airplanes, they're crowded by the consorts, by the wives of the residents of Vaikuntha, and they're very attractive bodily features, beautiful smiling faces, but their husbands are not stimulated by the passion of their mirth or smiling and beautiful charms. So specifically in the Sanskrit we have na rajaha, so no sex desire. So raja, of course, referring to passion. So there's no gross sex desire or sex life going on, because the 3 modes of material nature are absent from the Vaikuntha world, spiritual world. So, and because of their higher taste of Krishna consciousness, the whole goal of all the residents of Vaikuntha is simply serving and pleasing the Supreme Personality. And even though that their consorts are so beautiful in every respect, Prabhupada says the residents of Vaikuntha have a better standard of pleasure, so there is no need of sex pleasure. So in the purport to the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, Prabhupada explains that that original sex desire is not part of the body, it's part of the soul. It's existing eternally, as part of the jiva, but in that pure form is of prema, or specifically so I've just gone blank. Haladini Shakti, specifically Haladini Shakti, or personification, as the Radharani is the personification of Haladini Shakti. So that's Krishna's energy, and in our pure existence as the jiva in the spiritual world, we're enjoying through that agency of Haladini Shakti. But due to misuse of our independence, we come to this material world. When that pure prema comes in contact with the mode of passion, it's transformed into lust. into lust. So therefore, because we're part and parcel of Krishna, we have eternal relationship with him, but we're trying to fulfill that spiritual happiness through material relationships. And so we see, like Radha and Krishna, this is the male and female together. This is the primary relationship of pleasure. So in the spiritual world, the pure example of that is Radha and Krishna are joined together. So many amorous pastimes, but we try to imitate that in the material world. So, but it's also the jiva is described as prakriti, which is feminine, and Krishna is the purush, which is masculine. So therefore, so really Krishna can be described as the only male, the only purusha, the only enjoyer, and the jiva is the enjoyed as the prakriti, or feminine. So this is our natural constitutional position, is to be enjoyed by Krishna. As jivas, we're enjoyed by Krishna, and performing devotional service in so many different ways to put ourselves into that platform. And in our conditioned state, we have that lusty desires, in contact with the mode of passion. But knowingly or unknowingly, we may be performing a gata sukriti, or devotional or pious activities, life after life. And slowly that pious activities is transforming the heart. That Haladini Shakti is slowly moving in and purifying our heart unto a point that we may come in contact with devotional service to the devotees, the holy name, transcendental literature, whatever, and at a certain point we're ripe to take advantage of that. But so that sort of happens automatically or unknowingly, as I said, at Gata Sukriti, we're unknowingly performing pious activities until the heart becomes purified. And if we're so desirous, we can continue that development of engaging in devotional service. So it's really only through our original relationship with Krishna as the jiva, as the enjoyed with Krishna the Purush, that we can really realise that ultimate love, which is the pinnacle of the evolution of the soul in their relationship with Krishna. And we have in the next verse, actually, it mentions, we'll hear tomorrow, that the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha are constantly cleaning or dusting the houses in the Vaikuntha realm. And even though there's no dust, they're simply doing it to receive the grace of Vishnu. But it described that the Lakshmis, they're actually the residents, like the wives of the residents of Vaikuntha. But they're engaged in service to Vishnu, to please him. And so it's interesting comparison that Krishna, when he came to this world, or also in Goloka Vrindavan, that the gopis, the wives of the gopas, they're constantly serving and trying to associate with Krishna. So it's a similar comparison that Krishna is always the supreme Purusha, the supreme enjoyer, and he's enjoying the association of either the gopis or in Vaikuntha, the wives of the residents of Vaikuntha. So in the end, whether it's due to envy or ignorance that we're trying to enjoy separately from Krishna in this material world, but we're trying to imitate or resurrect that original relationship of Krishna and the jiva. We're trying to imitate that in this material world through our material relationships. And there may be some sort of taste, it's said that the Prabhupada says that the closest relationship in this material world of the jiva relationship of Krishna is that of the mother and the child, that the mother has so much love for their children. So it's almost selfless love. So he describes that's the closest thing we see in the material world of our original relationship with in the material world with Krishna and the jiva. So Lord Brahma, he's giving this next few verses also, he's giving this description of what Vaikuntha is like. And one could question, well, Lord Brahma, he's a jiva, he's the original jiva in this material world, but how does he understand what Vaikuntha is like? Because at least in this particular lifetime he hasn't been there, but we know that through his original austerities, when at the beginning of creation he pleased Lord Vishnu, and within the heart all that knowledge was given to him. So, and this is how spiritual life works, of course, is that through our service, Krishna is revealing to us within our heart all transcendental understanding. So that, and it's going on automatically when there's devotion and service there, automatically that realization is coming into the heart. So the same with Lord Brahma, he's describing to the demigods what the description of Vaikuntha, because he has fully realized that by the grace of Krishna. Okay, so we'll end there. If there's any questions or comments at all. Yes. Okay. Nothing. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.